While repairing the electrical wires in my parents' basement, the electrician turned pale and started shaking. He muttered, "Grab your stuff and get out. Don't let your parents know." I glanced down into the basement, terrified, and instantly called the police. I used to think my family was just broken, a typical sad story of divorce and a distant father. But I was so wrong. What I found hidden in the depths of our old house wasn't just a secret, it was a chilling, evil plot against my very life, and it turned my entire world upside down. You won't believe what happened next. My name is Jacob Caldwell, and I'm 24 now, just out of college, trying to make sense of a life that feels completely warped. I live in this tiny apartment in Portland, Oregon, and some days, looking out at the rain-soaked streets, I still feel like a forgotten puzzle piece in my own family's picture. My story really starts back in that 3-story craftsman house in the suburbs, where the first cracks in my world began to show. We were middle class, comfortable. My dad, Samuel, ran a construction company. He was a tall man, deep voice, always had this air of authority, like he could see right through anything. But he never really saw me. He was consumed by blueprints and big dreams, and that ambition, I think, is what ultimately drove a wedge between him and my mom, Monica. My mom was gentle, with soft brown hair and a smile like warm sunlight. She loved me, I knew that. She'd tell me fairy tales for hours, stroke my hair when storms raged at night. But her marriage to my dad? It was a house built on sand, beautiful from a distance, but one big wave would bring it all crashing down. I remember being 10, clutching my teddy bear in bed, my heart tight with every muffled argument that echoed through the walls. Then came the day it shattered. My parents divorced. I remember my mom on the sofa, a small suitcase at her feet, her hands trembling as she pulled me into a tight hug. "Jacob, you are everything to me," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. But the court didn't see it that way. Dad had the stable job, the nice house, promises of a better life. Mom, with her part-time gig, stood no chance. She left to live with my grandparents a few hours away, and as that door closed behind her, a piece of my heart just tore away. I stood there, frozen, watching her fade into the distance, wondering what I'd done wrong to make her leave. From then on, I changed. I wasn't that laughing, playful kid anymore. The world felt fragile, like anything I loved could vanish. My dad, still physically present, didn't seem to notice. He was too busy rebuilding his life. I was just a small detail in his grand plan. 2 years later, when I was 12, Serena came into our lives. She was much younger than my dad, barely in her 30s, with glossy blonde hair and a sweet smile that always felt insincere. She charmed him, knew how to make him laugh, something I hadn't seen since Mom left. But to me, her gaze was always cold, like she was looking through me. "Jacob, are you okay?" she'd ask, but the words were hollow, just meant to fill the silence at dinner. Dad changed too. He became dependent on her, letting her decide everything, from schools for our new half-siblings, John and Lily, to what we ate for dinner. John and Lily were adorable, I won't lie. John loved soccer. Lily would snuggle up during cartoons. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was an outsider. I was a ghost in my own home, the familiar hallways echoing with my mother's laughter now replaced by a chilling sense of estrangement. And then there was the basement. It lay deep underground, a dark maw accessible by an old wooden staircase. The musty smell, the seeping water, the bone-chilling cold always made me shudder. I'd been curious as a child, but Serena, from the moment she moved in, forbade me from ever going down there. "It's dangerous, Jacob," she'd said, her voice soft but sharp as a blade. Dad didn't object. So I obeyed, but every time I passed that door, an inexplicable unease pricked at me, like something sinister was lurking just out of sight. My teenage years were solitary. I learned to hide my emotions, to smile when Serena asked, to nod when Dad talked about his company. My only solace was phone calls with my mom, Monica. She was my lifeline, my light in the darkness. "You're stronger than you think, Jacob," she'd say, her voice a bomb through the phone. Those conversations healed a part of me, but they couldn't fill the void. The dinner table, once Mom's domain, was now Serena's, perfectly arranged but filled with polite, empty words. John and Lily laughed. Dad mumbled about work, and I just sat there, swallowing tasteless food, realizing I was no longer part of his family. Serena always found subtle ways to sideline me. "Jacob's grown up," I overheard her tell Dad once. "He'll manage on his own." Her voice was soft, but the coldness cut deep. Dad just mumbled in agreement. He'd chosen her side. At 18, I left. College in Portland, living on my own. But even away from that craftsman house, the memories, especially of that dark basement, still haunted me. Little did I know, years later, that very basement would rip open a horrifying secret, forcing me to see my entire life through a completely different lens. Now, at 24, I'm juggling a part-time job at an old bookstore and a modest allowance from my mom. Monica, still my anchor, sends me encouraging letters every month. "You'll find your path, Jacob." I visit her and my grandparents often. Those weekends are my sanctuary, where I can finally just be myself. But with Dad and Serena, it's different. I keep my distance, only occasionally stopping by the old house, usually when John or Lily text me. My relationship with my father feels like a thread stretched to snapping. Serena still plays the perfect stepmother, all polite inquiries and calculated smiles, but I know it's just a facade. Then, a few months ago, things got strange. My body no longer felt like my own. Sudden, skull-splitting headaches. Waking up dizzy, the world tilting. A persistent, inexplicable fatigue. I'd always been healthy, rarely even a cold, so these symptoms terrified me. Doctors ran every test imaginable, brain scans, blood work, but found nothing. Stress, they said, prescribing supplements. I took them, but the exhaustion clung to me like a shadow. Around the same time, Serena suddenly became too attentive. Her calls came more often, her voice syrupy sweet. "Jacob, it's been a while. Why don't you join us for dinner?" It left me surprised and deeply suspicious. I wanted to believe her, to hope she finally wanted to mend things, but every time I heard her voice, a chill ran down my spine. Something was off, so I started visiting more often. Those family dinners, bathed in warm yellow light, seemed normal. But every time I sat at that table, I noticed a strange taste in the food. Not spoiled, but something indescribable, faintly metallic, chemical. I asked Serena once, but she just smiled, said it was a new recipe. Dad, as usual, paid no attention. John and Lily were oblivious. I was the only one holding my spoon, feeling like I was swallowing unease with every bite. That feeling intensified when I stayed overnight. Some nights, I'd jolt awake to strange sounds from the basement, clanging metal, like something heavy being dragged. Then, a sharp, acrid smell, incense mixed with something chemical, would drift under my door. I'd lie there, heart pounding, listening. But when I'd step out, the hallway was dark and silent. The basement door was always locked tight, meant to keep out the curious. "Just for safety," Serena had said, her eyes flicking over me like lightning when I asked. Those visits took a toll. The headaches became excruciating. The dizziness, the fatigue, the unnamed heaviness, it all clung to me. I started tracking my symptoms, desperate for a pattern. Was it stress, or something else? A vague instinct grew within me. Something was wrong in that house. In the meals, in Serena's glances. I wanted to believe I was imagining it, blowing my loneliness out of proportion, but the instinct whispered, "Be careful." A few weeks later, I realized I'd left some important university documents and an old camera at my father's house. I hesitated, knowing the family was away, but I decided to just swing by, grab my things, and leave. The Portland sky was overcast, threatening rain. Parking in the driveway, I noticed the eerie quiet. No Lily's laughter, no Dad's grumbling, no Serena's saccharine voice. They were on vacation, and I hadn't been invited. A pang of hurt, though I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. I unlocked the front door with my spare key. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the wall clock. I went to my old room, found my things. My eyes fell on a framed photo on the bookshelf. Dad, Serena, John, and Lily, all beaming in some summer park. I wasn't in it. A chill ran down my spine. Years of being pushed to the margins, flooded back. I shook my head, stuffing my things into my bag. Then, the lights flickered and died. A sharp click, and the house plunged into darkness. Rain began to patter outside. The electrical system had failed. I checked the breaker panel, fine. I couldn't leave the house like this. I found a local electrician online, Mike, a middle-aged man with a gruff, warm voice. "I'll be right over, kid," he said. Mike arrived and quickly determined the main electrical box was in the basement. I pointed to the door, my heart racing. "Down there," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I don't go down often." Mike raised an eyebrow, walked to the door, and eyed the shiny lock. "Locked up this tight? Got treasure down there or something," he joked, but my smile was weak. Serena's warning echoed. "It's dangerous, Jacob. Don't go down there." As a child, I'd obeyed, but now a cold shiver ran through me. Something wasn't right. "Should we wait for my dad?" I asked, my voice trembling. "He might know more." Mike shrugged. "You can wait, but if we don't fix this now, the house will be dark for days." He was right. I couldn't leave it. I took a deep breath. "All right, I'll come with you." Mike pulled heavy-duty bolt cutters from his toolbox. The grinding sound of metal on metal pierced the quiet. With one strong twist, the lock snapped. The basement door creaked open, groaning like a long-imprisoned lament. A wave of cold air rushed out, carrying a thick, musty odor mixed with something else. Sharp, acrid, like dried blood blended with burning incense. My throat tightened. We descended the old wooden stairs, step by shaky step. Mike swept his flashlight around the room. Stained concrete walls, dusty shelves, dark corners. "Electrical box is probably around here," he muttered, but his voice trembled. My gaze was drawn to a rough wooden table covered with a black cloth. Half-burned black candles, their wax like dried tears. In the center, a small glass jar filled with a dark red liquid. I stepped closer. The sharp, unmistakable smell of blood. Next to the jar, a crude cloth doll, no bigger than my hand, pierced with rusted pins. On its fabric face, the word Jacob was clumsily stitched in red thread, like a curse etched into being. My breath caught. The air in the room tightened around my throat. "Good God," Mike whispered, his flashlight freezing. He stepped back, face pale. "What the hell is this?" I could only nod. On the table, an open wooden box revealed tiny, milky white animal bones mixed with charred paper talismans covered in strange symbols. My head spun. I swung my flashlight to the wall, and my heart stopped. It was me, an old college photo, smiling, carefree, unaware it would end up here. Around the picture, a circle had been drawn in red paint, surrounded by bizarre symbols, deliberately marking me. Nearby, an open notebook lay sprawled, filled with handwritten scrolls. My name, Jacob Caldwell, repeated over and over, like a relentless curse. "You need to call the police, Jacob," Mike said, his voice barely a whisper. "This isn't normal." He backed away, eyes wide with fear. I wanted to reassure him, but I couldn't. The pieces began to click, forming a horrifying picture I didn't want to believe. The headaches, the dizziness, the fatigue, the odd taste in the food. Serena's probing gaze, like she was waiting for something. The noises from the basement. The times I'd seen her slip down here in the dead of night. All those details I dismissed as imagination now stood out, clear as day. Serena, my stepmother. She wasn't just distant. She was doing something far more sinister. A dark ritual. A curse. A plot to destroy me. I stood there, frozen, phone clutched in my trembling hand. My heart pounded like it might burst. I wasn't just an abandoned son, pushed to the edges. I was the target of something dark, malevolent, incomprehensible. I looked back at the cloth doll, feeling like someone was squeezing my heart. Why? Why was Serena doing this? And my father, did he know? Was he part of it? I pulled out my phone, switched on the camera, and started taking pictures of everything. The table, the candles, the jar, the doll, my photo, the notebook. Each snapshot was a piece of evidence, a way to preserve the truth before it could be erased. I didn't know what I'd do, but I knew I had to act. I couldn't let fear consume me. "Jacob, we should get out of here," Mike urged. "It's not safe." I nodded, but my feet felt rooted. Why do they want to destroy me? I thought of my father, a stranger now. Serena, with her fake smiles and cold eyes. John and Lily, innocent siblings, oblivious to the darkness. I turned and climbed the stairs, each step heavy. Mike followed, silent. When we emerged, I closed the door, but the dread clung to me. I just uncovered a secret I couldn't unsee. The Craftsman house, once my home, now felt like a trap. And I, without a doubt, was the prey. My legs trembled as I stared at the photos on my phone. Mike, still shocked, insisted. Jacob, you need to call the police right now. I nodded, dialing 911, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. A calm voice answered. 911, what's your emergency? I cleared my throat, trying not to stammer. I'm Jacob Caldwell. I'm at my father's house in Portland. I just found something strange in the basement. I think it's cult-related, dangerous. Please come quickly. My voice faltered, but I described everything. The doll, the blood, the symbols. The operator asked for confirmation, and I handed the phone to Mike. I'm Mike, the electrician, he said, his voice steadier than mine. I can confirm. Everything down here is very wrong. You need to send someone now. Mike's confirmation prioritized the call. We were instructed to wait outside, standing in the drizzling rain. I clutched my phone, the photos on the screen my only proof. Mike said nothing, just stared down the street, tense. Less than 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up. Officer Harris and Officer Lopez introduced themselves. You're Jacob Caldwell? Harris asked, hand resting near his holstered gun. Yes, I said, trying to steady my voice. I called 911. There's something really strange in the basement. You need to check it out. Harris raised an eyebrow, exchanging a skeptical glance with Lopez. Strange how? Lopez asked. I understood their reaction. My story sounded like a low-budget horror movie. There's a doll with my name on it, symbols on the walls, and a jar that looks like it's filled with blood, I said, showing them the photos. Harris glanced at them, still unconvinced. Could be a prank, he said calmly, or some weird art project. Blood rushed to my face. This isn't a prank, I insisted, my voice hardening. I'm not imagining this. Please, just go down there and see. Lopez nodded to Harris. All right, lead us down. I took a breath, opened the front door, and guided them to the basement. Mike followed, keeping his distance. The wooden stairs creaked. The musty, acrid smell hit me again. When we reached the bottom, I pointed to the table. Harris and Lopez swept their flashlights around. I watched their expressions shift from skepticism to shock. Harris paused at the doll. Jesus, he muttered, almost too low to hear. Lopez stepped closer to the jar of blood, then to my photo on the wall encircled in red. She exchanged a look with Harris. No doubt this time. This isn't a prank, she said, her voice grave. We need to seal this place off. Harris nodded, radioing for backup. I stood there, feeling the world collapse. The fear was validated. This wasn't my imagination. Something horrific was happening in the house I once called home. Soon, an investigative team arrived with cameras, evidence bags, and equipment. Detective Carter, a tall officer, asked me to recount everything. Sitting in the darkened living room, illuminated by their flashlights, I told them about the headaches, the dizziness, the strange food, Serena's suspicious behavior, the noises from the basement, her cold stares, my gut feeling. Carter took notes, nodding. Do you think anyone in your family is involved? He asked, his eyes sharp. I hesitated. I think it's Serena, I said, my voice trembling. She always forbade me from going to the basement. And the meals. I felt worse after eating here. I paused, thinking of my father. My dad? I'm not sure, but I don't think he's entirely innocent. Carter just nodded. He told me to stay in touch and promised a thorough investigation. The house was sealed with yellow tape. As the police cars drove away, I stood in the front yard, rain soaking my shoulders. A mix of relief, someone finally believed me, and dread for the gruesome truth. My family wasn't just broken, it was hiding a dark secret, and I was at its center. That night, I drove straight to my mother's house. She and my grandparents were in the living room, bathed in the warm glow of a lamp. I told them everything, from breaking the lock to what I found. Mom listened, initially skeptical, her eyes filled with worry. Jacob, are you sure? She asked, trembling. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos. The cloth doll, the jar of blood, my photo on the wall, they were stunned. My grandfather, a man of few words, shook his head. I've never seen anything like this. Mom pulled me into a hug, tears streaming down her face. My boy, she whispered. I sat in her arms, feeling a piece of my heart shatter all over again. Days passed at Mom's house. I tried to find peace, but every time I closed my eyes, the basement images flooded back. I checked my phone constantly, waiting for news. Then one morning, Carter called. Jacob, you need to come to your father's house now, he said, his voice grave. Your family just returned from their trip. We need you here for a confrontation. My heart pounded. I'll be right there, I said. Mom looked at me worried. Do you want me to come? I shook my head. I have to do this alone, Mom. She hugged me tightly, as if to transfer her strength. As I drove, Portland's sky remained gray, mirroring my mood. Pulling onto the familiar street, I saw my father's car, suitcases scattered. They were back. I took a deep breath, stepped out of my car, my heart thundering. The front door was open, and Dad's angry voice echoed. What is this nonsense? Who dared to put police tape on my house? I stepped inside. The air in the living room froze. Dad, Samuel, was flushed with rage. Serena stood beside him, her blonde hair neat, but her eyes flickered when she saw me. John and Lily stood in a corner, small and confused. Jacob, Dad said, frowning, his voice sharp. What the hell is going on? Serena cut in, her voice icy but controlled. Richard, I've already called the police. They said they're sending someone. This must be a mistake. Our house isn't a crime scene. Dad waved his phone. I just spoke to them. They said there was a report about our basement. Just then, police sirens wailed outside. Detective Carter walked in, with Officers Harris and Lopez and another investigative team. Mr. Samuel Caldwell, Mrs. Serena Caldwell, Carter said, calm but sharp. We need your cooperation regarding some serious concerns about this house. Serena forced a stiff, mask-like smile. Misunderstanding, officer. We just got back. We know nothing. Dad nodded, his gaze shifting from me to Carter. Exactly. I want an explanation. Carter ignored them. He gestured to me. Jacob, can you tell us what you saw? I took a breath, feeling the weight of every eye. My voice was shaky, but grew steadier. I came here to pick up some things. The power went out. I called an electrician, and we went to the basement to check. I paused, locking eyes with Serena, and recounted every detail. The room fell silent. Dad's frown deepened. Serena briefly froze, then regained composure. Jacob, what are you talking about? Dad asked, thick with disbelief. Are you making this up for attention? But I didn't back down. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, and handed it to Carter. He held the screen up for my father and Serena. This is what we found, Carter said. And we need an explanation from both of you. Serena let out a dry, unnatural laugh. Officer, these are just spiritual items. A few things I used to pray for family safety. There's nothing dangerous. She looked at me, eyes cold, still holding that calculated smile. Jacob, you've misunderstood. I'd never do anything to hurt you. Blood rushed to my face. I stepped forward, facing Serena, my voice shaking but resolute. You're lying, I said, each word carved from my chest. What did you do to me? The headaches, the fatigue, the strange taste in the food. It was all you, wasn't it? You wanted me to waste away. Dad shot to his feet, red with anger. Jacob, that's enough, he shouted. You don't talk to your stepmother like that. This is nonsense. But I didn't back down. I looked him in the eyes, unafraid. Did you know about this, Dad? Or are you part of it too? I asked, my voice low but sharp. He froze, his eyes flickering, but he didn't answer. Carter raised a hand, calling for calm. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, we have clear evidence of a ritualistic setup in the basement, with items specifically targeting Jacob. This isn't a joke. We need a clear explanation, or we'll have to proceed according to the law. Serena began to deflect, her voice frantic. I told you, it's just for prayers. I don't know anything about pins or blood. But her tension and panic betrayed her. Dad stood silent, his hands clenched, wrestling with himself. I looked at him, hoping he'd say something, defend me, show he was still my father. But he just lowered his head, mute. Suddenly, more sirens. Another investigative team entered, with paperwork and an arrest warrant. Carter looked at Dad and Serena, his voice cold as steel. Samuel Caldwell. Serena Caldwell. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit premeditated murder. Another officer read their rights. Lopez and Harris moved in, preparing to cuff them. Serena burst into tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. She struggled, shouting, "You can't do this. I didn't do anything." Dad, in contrast, was silent, pale, as if his world had collapsed. As they were cuffed, I heard soft sobbing. John and Lily stood on the staircase, eyes red and terrified. Lily ran to me, hugging me tightly, crying, "Jacob, what's happening?" I held her, not knowing how to answer. John stood, fists clenched, eyes filled with anger and pain. As the police led my father and Serena away, I stood frozen at the door, watching them disappear behind flashing lights. Serena glanced back, her eyes no longer masking her fury. Dad didn't look at me, didn't say a word. My heart felt crushed, but a wave of relief washed over me. The family I'd clung to for so long, the perfect facade, was now revealed as something rotten, steeped in lies and darkness. I stood there, under the drizzling rain, watching the police cars fade. Carter patted my shoulder. "You did well, Jacob. We'll keep investigating. Stay in touch." I nodded, my mind reeling. The truth was out, leaving a void, part loss, part freedom. That night, I didn't return to my apartment. I drove straight to my mother's. The next morning, Carter called again. "Jacob, we found some important documents in your father's house. Some concern you. We've contacted a lawyer, Mr. Collins, who's worked with your family before. You should meet with him." I gripped the phone, a chill running through me. Documents about me? What other secrets were waiting? Mr. Collins's office was downtown, warm and inviting, but his kind smile couldn't hide the gravity in his eyes. "Jacob, please sit," he said, gesturing. Detective Carter stood in the corner. On the desk, a thick file with yellowed papers. "Jacob," Mr. Collins began, "what I'm about to tell you may be hard to accept, but you need to know the truth." He pushed the file toward me, opening it to a page bearing my grandparents' familiar signatures. "This is documentation of a trust fund established years ago by your grandparents, Henry and Eleanor Caldwell. The fund is worth approximately $2 million, and it's in your name. You'll inherit it fully when you turn 25. I sat there, stunned. $2 million? The air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. "I don't understand," I stammered. "Why didn't I know?" Mr. Collins sighed. "Your grandparents stipulated it remain a secret until you came of age. All documents related to the trust were sent to your legal guardian, your father, Samuel. He's known about it for years." His words hit me like a knife. My father knew. Serena must have known too. And then, like the final piece of a puzzle snapping into place, it all made sense. Everything that had happened had a reason. They wanted me dead. If I were gone, the trust fund would fall to my father, and Serena, with her cunning, would surely find a way to claim it. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, trying to suppress the anger and pain surging within me. Carter stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "We're investigating when Samuel and Serena began planning this. What you found in the basement, combined with these documents, provides strong evidence of their motive." I nodded, numb. My father, the man who once carried me on his shoulders, had chosen money over me. Serena, with her fake smiles, had made me the target of a sinister plot. My heart felt torn apart, yet a cold clarity settled over me. All those years of loneliness, of feeling like I didn't belong, now they made sense. Leaving Mr. Collins's office, I carried a copy of the trust fund documents and a storm of emotions. I stopped at a park, sitting on a bench as memories flooded in. My grandparents, Henry and Eleanor, Grandpa with his white hair, telling stories, teaching me to tie knots, always emphasizing honesty. "Jacob, live in a way you're never ashamed of yourself," he'd said. Grandma, gentle like a summer breeze, holding me close, singing old folk songs. When my parents divorced, they were my comfort. They died when I was 13 and 14, leaving a void I could never fill. But now, holding those documents, I realized they had never truly left me. This trust fund, this $2 million, wasn't just money. It was their love, the final shield they left to protect me. Yet, Ironically, that same love had become the reason my father and Serena wanted to destroy me. Pain for the betrayal, gratitude for my grandparents. I vowed not to let greed or betrayal destroy what they believed in me. That evening, back in my apartment, I opened an old photo album. A picture of me, 8 years old, beaming between my grandparents at a picnic, sunlight filtering through trees. I touched the photo, feeling their warmth. "I'll live worthy of this legacy," I whispered, my voice choked. "I won't let greed ruin what you believed in me." The months that followed were a whirlwind of court hearings and sensational headlines. The Caldwell family story, once a comfortable middle-class household, became public spectacle. Murder plot in Craftsman home, occult greed, horrifying secrets in the basement. Each time I read those words, it felt like someone was squeezing my chest. The photos I took, Mike's testimony, Mr. Collins's revelations, all painted a clear picture. Serena, the mastermind, orchestrating horrific rituals. My father, guilty of complicity for knowing about the trust fund and failing to stop her. On the day of sentencing, Carter called. "Jacob," he said, "the court has reached a verdict. Samuel Caldwell, 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Serena Caldwell, 30 years as a mastermind and for the occult activities. 25 years. 30 years. The numbers echoed, but brought no triumph, only a deep sadness. The Caldwell family, my father's pride, was now a stain. Time passed. I started rebuilding. Found a stable job at a counseling center, preparing for grad school. The headaches and dizziness gradually faded, as if my body knew the threat was gone. I stayed in touch with John and Lily, but our meetings were marked by their pain. They didn't blame me, but they struggled to understand. I tried to be there, but the distance felt unbridgeable. Then came my 25th birthday, 2 years since that horrific discovery. No big celebration. Just Mom and my grandparents at their house. The kitchen smelled of cookies. A simple chocolate cake. "Happy birthday, Jacob." Mom hugged me, eyes shining, tinged with worry. "You've really grown up," she said, ruffling my hair. I blew out the candles, cut the cake. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just a birthday. It was the start of a new chapter, free from the past. The next morning, Mr. Collins called. "Jacob," he said warmly, "today you officially become the legal beneficiary of your grandparents' trust fund. $2 million, all yours." He explained the details, but I barely listened. My mind drifted to my childhood, running through their garden. Then, he handed me a pale yellow envelope. "This is from your grandparents. They wrote it before they passed, instructing me to give it to you when you turn 25. My grandmother's soft, elegant handwriting spelled my name. "Thank you," I choked out, emotions welling up. "For everything." That afternoon, I sat in a park, maple trees vibrant red. I opened the envelope. My grandparents' words came alive. "Dear Jacob, you are our greatest joy. No matter how hard life gets, no matter what challenges you face, remember that you are stronger than you know. We left this trust for you not just for a better life, but so you can live true to your heart. Live kindly, honestly, and never let darkness dim the light inside you. Love you forever, Grandpa Henry and Grandma Eleanor." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I smiled. In that moment, I felt a sense of release. I'd finally found a home. Not the Craftsman house steeped in darkness, but a home within my own heart. My grandparents, though gone, were still with me, guiding me. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from the Oregon State Penitentiary. My father's scrolled handwriting, Samuel Caldwell. My heart raced. I sat, hands trembling, and opened it. "Jacob, I know you don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you one last time as your father. I don't expect forgiveness, but please let me see you. You're still my son. Samuel." I read it over and over. Father. The word felt foreign. I thought of his indifference, how he chose work, chose Serena, chose money over me. The basement. The pin doll. Part of me wanted to tear the letter up, but another part urged me to face him, not to reconcile, but to close the chapter. I spent sleepless nights. Finally, I decided to go, not for him, but for myself. I needed to end the past, to break the chains. The Oregon State Penitentiary, a gray fortress. I passed through security, feeling like I entered another world. A guard led me to the visitation room. I sat, hands clasped, trying to stay calm. The door opened. My father walked in. I barely recognized him. Haggard, hair grayer, face gaunt. An orange uniform, hands cuffed, yet he tried to hold his head high, clinging to a shred of the father I once knew. He sat, picked up the phone, and looked at me through the glass. "Jacob," he said, his voice hoarse. "Thank you for coming." I didn't respond. "What do you want from me?" I asked, colder than I intended. He attempted a weak smile. "I just wanted to talk. I never meant to hurt you. I let things go too far." His voice faltered. I felt no pity. His words were hollow. "You knew about the trust fund," I said, locking eyes. "You knew what Serena was doing, and you didn't stop her." He bowed his head, eyes red, but didn't deny it. "I was wrong, Jacob," he whispered. "I got caught up in ambition in what Serena said. I thought she was doing what was best for the family." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Family? You call that a family? You chose her. Chose money over me." He didn't respond, head lowered. The door on his side opened. Serena was let in. My blood ran cold, her glossy blonde hair disheveled, her face harsh, stripped of the polished facade. Her eyes, cold and venomous, locked onto me. She picked up the phone, her voice still clinging to that fake sweetness. "Jacob, you've misunderstood. The things in the basement, they were just spiritual rituals. I never meant to hurt you." I stared at her, my gaze unwavering. "Don't call me your son," I said, low but sharp. "You tried to kill me, Serena. Stop lying." She stiffened, lips trembling, her eyes burning with resentment. "You don't understand," she muttered, her voice weakening. I stood, setting the phone down. "I didn't come here to hear excuses," I said, looking from my father to Serena. "I came to say I'm done with you both. This family died a long time ago. I'm not your son anymore, and I'm not your family. I'm choosing my own life, and there's no place in it for either of you." I turned and walked out, not looking back. I heard my father call my name, his voice breaking, but I didn't stop. Stepping out of the prison, I breathed in the free air. I'd shed a burden carried for years. The visitation room door closed, and I knew it was closing on my past. I was no longer chained by those memories. Ahead lay an open road, and for the first time, I felt truly free. From that day forward, I severed all contact. No letters, no calls. They became part of my past, a scar, but no longer what defined me. I focused on the present, on building my dream, becoming a counselor to help young people like me, those from broken families, find their own light. I enrolled in grad school, juggling classes and part-time shifts. Whenever exhaustion hit, I looked at my grandparents' letter. "Live true to your heart." I was determined to do just that. The $2 million trust fund was a responsibility, but I managed it carefully. Tuition, living expenses, long-term investments. I didn't want it to just be money. I established the Henry and Eleanor Fund, supporting children who, like me, grew up without a complete sense of home. Each thank you letter from a charity felt like an extension of my grandparents' love. With some of the remaining money, I bought a modest house in the Portland suburbs, not the Craftsman house, but a cozy place with large windows overlooking a small garden. I painted the walls soft blue, hung photos of my mother and grandparents, and turned it into a true home. One afternoon, I called my mother, my voice hesitant but full of hope. "Mom, I want you to move in with me. This house, I want it to be our home." A pause. Then, her laugh, tinged with tears. "Jacob, my boy," she said. "I'll be there." And so she moved in, bringing her old stories, her home-cooked meals, evenings spent reminiscing. For the first time in years, I felt I truly had a family, bound not by blood, but by love. As months passed, I found inner peace. The nightmares of the basement, the doll, the blood, they no longer haunted me. I stopped waking up in the middle of the night. I no longer feared thinking of my father or Serena. Instead, I found joy in simple things, brewing coffee for my mother, an inspiring class, helping a child share their pain at the counseling center. My grandparents' memory became a guiding light, their love a reminder that true love existed, not from those who abandoned me, but from those who chose to love me unconditionally. I learned lessons no classroom could teach. Blood doesn't always mean love. My father chose greed. Serena taught me that family isn't about shared blood, but about those who make you feel safe and loved. I learned to let go of hatred, not because they deserved it, but because I refused to become like them, consumed by malice. I chose forgiveness, not to erase what they did, but to free myself. My journey came to a quiet close one afternoon, sitting in my small backyard garden, watching wildflowers sway. I thought of the boy I once was, frightened and alone, believing he was unworthy of love. That boy had grown, carrying scars, but also a new belief. The past leaves marks, but it doesn't dictate the future. I smiled, breathed in the fresh air, and felt a new beginning, not loud or showy, but brimming with hope. I had found myself, not the abandoned son, not the target of a plot, but Jacob Caldwell, a man ready to live with an open heart, despite the darkness that once tried to consume me. And now I have to ask you, if you had uncovered a secret this dark, this personal, in your own family, what do you think you would have done? Would you have confronted them, gone to the police, or tried to just walk away and forget it all? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your perspective on this.